you likely enjoyed some grains at some point today, whether it was cereal at breakfast or bread on your sandwich at lunch, or maybe even some pizza dough that we're about to consume in the back. I highly doubt, however, that any of you considered the amount of time and effort it takes to take grain into that final form that you consumed. Unfortunately, for thousands of women in Western Africa, the arduous process of milling grain by hand is a daily reality. And as my coworker, Sierra, is about to demonstrate, the mortar and pestle method traditionally done is extremely energy intensive and not very efficient. Sierra here is by no means an expert at this. But sorry, Sierra. But even an experienced Senegalese woman can only pound out about a kilogram of grain an hour. This translates to 4 to 6 hours a day just to produce food for their families. We feel this is too much time. Fortunately, there's some good news. The continuous decrease in the price of solar energy in the past couple of decades has made off-grid solutions more and more accessible to developing communities worldwide. Today, we'd like to present to you one of those. This is our prototype for Unigoal, a solar-powered grain mill capable of milling 8 kilograms of grain an hour, all while requiring almost no user input. We hope to pilot this product right here in Senegal, West Africa, specifically the colder region, as we got this idea from a returned Peace Corps volunteer who got a little bit of a shout out earlier from my mom there. We want to pilot this here because the colder region has a large population of 300,000, but also functions on mostly subsistence agriculture, so we feel this is a great place to start. Unigoal literally means to pound grain in Pulaar, the native language spoken in that colder region of Senegal. But for us, it centers us around our mission to enable community development by providing women in developing communities with access to solar grain mills. Now you're probably asking yourself, how is something like a solar grain mill really going to lead to community development? Well, the first answer to that is free time. And while market research has been pretty difficult to conduct over the course of the 4-week Big 5 sprint period, and we can't say that we know exactly what a Senegalese woman would choose to do with 4 to 6 hours of free time, we hope it might look something like this. We hope some of the women might use the free time to generate additional income for their family, either through for-profit agriculture or engaging local businesses in their town or starting their own. We hope that some women may choose to pursue an education with their extra time, or maybe free up time for their children to pursue an education of their own. Finally, we hope that some of the women may take some of the 4 to 6 hours and just enjoy some very hard-earned family time. Our second goal that we hope to accomplish through the installation of these Unigoal solar mills around West Africa is improving self-sufficiency in the treatment of malnutrition. So the United States Peace Corps currently recommends a combination of these 4 grains you see here into a sort of peanut butter porridge mix to give to children who are malnourished. The issue here is that combining these grains is extremely energy intensive, and therefore it's not that frequently practiced. We hope through installing Unigoal in one of our distribution channels that we'll talk about later that we can increase the production of therapeutic food and even enable some village entrepreneurs to go out and sell some for themselves. So when we wanted to design Unigoal and for our prototype, we set out to design a radically affordable, small-scale solar mill. For us, this meant keeping our price point for cost of goods sold below $500, all while being able to churn out that 8 kilograms of grain an hour. And while the prototype you can see here fell short on some of the production metrics, we do have plans for our second iteration and have our prices laid out here. It's essentially 4 basic components that come together to create a pretty simple system. Once we've created that second iteration, possible third iteration, and ready to pilot this, we hope to have production and implementation in Senegal through one of our 2 distribution channels. The first distribution channel, which you can see on the left, is direct to village shops. So village shops would be able to buy a solar mill on credit, and geez, Bruno, you scared me there. You can buy a solar mill on credit and then immediately begin making profits off sales of milled grain and therapeutic food. We also hope to sell to women's groups who also collect money as a communal currently and may be able to afford a mill on their own. Whatever the distribution model is, we hope that once this reaches the target market, it will revolutionize how grain is processed in off-grid regions of West Africa. And with the flick of a switch, save women in West Africa 4 to 6 hours a day in time and increase therapeutic food production for an entire region. This will turn on economic development in these regions and increase self-sufficiency in the rest. Thank you for your time, and my team and I will answer some questions.
All right, I have a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to narrow them.
Sure, 10 seconds, or was it the 1 minute?
All right.
That was the 1
You guys are almost out of time already because it took you forever to set up, so we're going to jump into this. Is this 5 weeks old? Like, honestly, like, who was doing something on this beforehand? Or did you actually prototype a mill from an idea phase in 5 weeks?
So my sister is returned Senegal
Yeah.
Peace Corps volunteer, and she gave me the idea 2 weeks before that started. So I was sort of ideating on it, but I didn't start. We started the prototype.
Who built that thing?
4 days ago. Me.
That's impressive. What's the so I know in a lot of these solutions that people are bringing to emerging markets for clean water or food production, a large problem is upkeep. And so it's going to break, and then once it breaks, they just sit there and people take all the parts and it becomes nothing. So what's the plan there?
Yeah, so if you take a look at the mill we have over here, it functions on a very basic mechanical property. So inside of here, there's just two rollers that roll next to each other, and that's probably the part that's most likely to fail on this. So those are going to grind out over time as it grinds millet or other grains. So we need to create a parts repository, and hopefully that'll be easy to do if we're doing our production in Senegal or West Africa, where we can just have those parts on hand ready to go. If something like a solar panel does break, we might want to include that in the payment plan that will guarantee if your solar panel does break, we'll replace it for free, something like that to make sure these stay functioning during the payment plan period and after.
So in the payment plan period too, have you seen anywhere where people are putting things on credit in sub-Saharan Africa or any parts of Africa and end up getting paid back for it? Or I mean, what's the payback rate?
This would be how we would do the payback period, but directly to your question, there's a company called B-Box, which works in Senegal. They have an office there, and it's a solar panel company. They sell 50-watt solar panels, so this like right here is a 75-watt solar panel. But they sell a 50-watt solar panel on a 3-year payback period. We reached out to them to try and spark up some conversation there, but I haven't heard back on email yet. But they've been existing for over 5 years, so I'm assuming if they're profitable, they're getting money back in some form.
So I might have missed this, but so you talked about the mortar and pestle version, you get about a kilo per hour with manual labor. So how does that compare with the system you set up?
Yeah, so this currently, the motor's a little bit undersized on our prototype, but once we get the better sized DC motor, we're hoping for 8 kilograms of grain through this roller mill. And that would be able to run 7 hours a day, so you'd be looking at like 56 kilograms of grain a day per village shop.
And that's with just one array of solar panels?
Actually, so we would be looking for 300 watts. So this currently is 75, so we'd probably buy 2 150-watt solar panels.
So is the problem not they have all the grain that they need? It's not the supply of grain, it's being able to process it?
That's true.
They have 56 kilograms a day that they need processed?
They live primarily on subsistence agriculture, so their entire community is based around growing all this grain and then taking all the time to create a meal out of it, basically. But back to that question, we wanted to emphasize that we're trying to be a very flexible company, so like you can range this size up and down quite a bit so that you can grind as little as, a couple kilograms an hour up to a ton, like 10, 12, even 20 kilograms, depending on the size of your motor. So it just depends on like the optimization that you want. And since we haven't done a lot of market research, we haven't pinpointed that optimization.
So 2 questions. One of them is, especially since you have an informed source on this area, do you have visions and hopes that the demonstration of solar power will take off in other directions? Do you see other places in which, when that recognition of, we could have this energy source, are there other areas where you see this getting moved, maybe by the folks themselves, into other uses?
Yeah, I think it's huge, and even with our village shop model, we would have other avenues for it to go. So we do have these 2 batteries here. They're not very large, but we're assuming we're going to be able to get just about as much energy out of the solar panels as we need. So the batteries will sort of serve as a regulator. But after the day's over, they're probably still going to be pretty fully charged. So you could use that for, people could come charge smaller batteries for lights in their homes or charge up cell phones. That's a for-profit business in a lot of places. It's just charging cell phones. So I think it might be an inspiration in terms of currently feasible, and then people might get more ideas for more things, we'd hope.
And now, I don't know if it's a disturbing question, but gender relations often are organized, men and women's respect for each other or expectations for each other, by how people work, by how women and men work. And so I just have this little unit of panic that you might be throwing something quite disordering into marriages and what did you do today, dear, kinds of situations, that this could be something that really rattles the way people think that women spend their time and men spend their time. And so that very delightful and positive uses of free time, that was nice. But I just wonder if, given how important work is to the definition of men's roles and women's roles, if you might be sowing a seed here that might be very unsettling.
So yeah, a lot of the male-female relations are, it's all loaning out to families and stuff, and it's based off of like arranged marriages and stuff like that. So what would happen, just like society in the United States, is it would be a slow change. First off, because of course women are definitely better at finances and starting up businesses and being more motivated. In that situation in a developing country, usually you give the money to the women to invest and stuff like that. And then eventually the payoff should be good enough eventually. Of course, there is the wild card woman that says, I don't need my husband anymore. I'm going to strike up. Then
Well, I guess
go.
solar power for husbands, if there's some compensatory thing that they can have that would be, I don't know, have no idea what they do in that society, but something that a man can say, well, I have mine, and it is now sharpening my axe, or whatever it is that's, I don't know, just.
Okay.
So, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, as we were saying with the energy generator, there could be extensions that could be put onto the store shop or stuff like that. Uses the extra solar power to grind an axe or charge a cell phone. Yeah.
So I was either going to ask a question and then make a comment, but I think I'll make a comment and then ask the question. Like we invest primarily in people with lived experience with problems. Like that's a huge requirement of what we do. So if we are going to invest in you, you have to have some vested stake in the process that you've come to identify the problem. With that being said, you're talking about a problem that is going to solve. It can be solved for females. Like you're saying that like the females are the ones in the societies that are doing these things. So with that being said, who would be your next hire? And my other question is, what did the two girls in the group, what was your role in this process?
Definitely. So I can touch on my role. I was considered we all came up with creative names for our positions, but I was business strategy and what was the last part of that? It's irrelevant. But I did the business background behind this project, worked on our goal and just making sure the why, the goal we were trying to get to, the problem we were trying to solve was carried out throughout the entire process. And that was just the underlying theme for every decision we made and theme that we had. So that was mine. And then Jen, do you want to touch on yours?
I was mainly graphic design and just sort of creating the whole feel and what we wanted to communicate, which is mainly focusing on community with our company. Focusing on community.
No, my next question, who would you hire next? You. Like if you had to hire a next person, who would that person be?
Maybe probably a woman from Senegal.
Awesome.
Let's wrap it up. Let's get